So I'm very happy to be here to talk about a lot of the work that my grad students and my undergraduates and I do together here, both at Auburn and around the world. So as you can see, the world we live in is human dominated, as this picture illustrated. But what I'd really like to start out with is saying that we live in a world that is dominated by people. Over 50% of the world is now in urban areas in the sense of where people live. So over half the human population lives in a city. And to support these cities and to support the 7+ billion people we have on the planet, we are converting much of the land around the world for some type of human purpose. So when we think about human purpose, what does that mean? We're looking at these pictures here on the left, for instance, and we can see in the middle and the bottom panels the amount of cropland, the amount of land devoted for ranges. So where do we get our food and our fiber? These are basic necessities for human life. And what we have gone from on the panel on the right is a transition from essentially a world that was predominantly what we might think of as natural to one that has a mix of different land uses, partly for people. And now, for instance, as we see in the United States, we're going to areas that have a mix of natural ecosystems. Some have a little bit of openings, a lot of protected areas, and a lot of intensive agriculture and urban areas. So there is no ecosystem left on the world. There is no point in the ocean. There is no place in the atmosphere that you cannot go and humans have not touched. People are everywhere. And so it's important to think about what that means. What it has done is certainly given you lots of opportunities to shop and have fun. We all love IKEA, right? But seriously, it has done things like move animals around the world, intentionally and unintentionally. Friends of ours, pets, animals unintentionally. These are animals that we call invasive species. They are brought to new ecosystems and they wreak havoc. They can cause ecological meltdowns. They can create new challenges. We spend billions of dollars of need to address these in the United States alone. It was estimated 15 years ago that we had a $17 billion annual price tag on these species, and we spend a fraction of that on their management. We also have expanding wildlife diseases. As we move around and urbanize and grow, we have a world where we have things like avian malaria there on the left. We have chronic wasting disease in the deer on the top right. Or we have West Nile virus. These are all diseases that we are concerned about today. As we have moved around and grown and changed, we also have caused some species to decline. We have many species now that are endangered. We have sea turtles, which fortunately have been recovering. We have animals that are the stilts on there that are fine. And we have animals on the top or left, the alala. That is a captive-only species. It's extinct in the wild. There's less than 200 individuals left on the planet, all in captivity. Another challenge. One that we can all relate to, human-wildlife conflict. As we increasingly move into rural areas and into forested areas and other places around the world, we have many situations whereby animals cause conflict with us, sometimes because they're scary, sometimes because they eat things we like, and sometimes we just think that they're not what we find attractive. Right? These are all examples. Do we lose fish from birds that we think are important? Do we find feral cat colonies in a city where we don't want them? Do we see that deer are eating our gardens? Some people like these and some people don't. All of these cause challenges. So the way I view wildlife is that if you're going to conserve wildlife into the 21st century, you have to use an interdisciplinary framework. That interdisciplinary framework must include people, it must include the species you care about, and it must include the landscape or the habitat within which they both occur. You cannot look at these solitarily and hope that we will figure out how to conserve species. So how do we do this in my lab? So what do we do? My goal, when I die, I would hope that I have something can be left to say, I want to have affected change. I want to make a difference by conserving wildlife for the future, for my children's children. So I want to work on things that relate to people, species, and the environment that will lead to positive outcomes. So I work on things like invasive species. This is an example of one of my former grad students, Mark Chinaweth, looking at feral pigs in Pohakaloa training area on the island of Hawaii. collaring them, following them around, and integrating them with remotely sensed images from satellites and airplanes to try to figure out where they're moving. Are they eating the last of the dry forests of Hawaii? We've also been working on things like feral cats and trying to understand, do people enjoy them? Do they want them out there? What are their management preferences? When we look at different stakeholder groups, different components of the public, what do they like? The majority of people actually find they don't want to see cats outdoors. We've also been looking, for instance, at how much cats eat. We find that so far we don't find any limit to what they will eat other than probably a body size condition. Over 1,000 different species we've found. 150 plus of those fall within some kind of IUCN category of threatened, endangered, or vulnerable. We also work on endangered species. So we've been looking at things like the reed canary, or the reed warbler here, that's found in Saipan in the South Pacific, and trying to figure out, will this population persist into the future? At present, if we do nothing, it will not. It will perish. We're looking at sea turtles. The sea turtle here in the middle, this is the plastic that is found in the gut of those in the ocean. And we're interested in how can we stop that? Not only just the plastic, what's attached to that plastic is persistent organic pollutants. That is things like PCBs, DDTs, organic compounds that are attached to those. We're trying to figure out what is actually on the plastic, not just the plastic itself, and do something about that. We're working on whooping cranes here in Alabama to try to understand why we are having some loss due to mortality intentionally by people. People now contribute enough negative impact that this population is not growing. This is a recoverable population. We're trying to understand why. And finally, we work in areas related to where people live. We want to know about what's happening in the city. The figure on the bottom left here is an indication of some work that we looked at across 50 plus cities that house birds and over 100 cities that have plants in a global analysis. And what we found is that you might think cities are concrete jungles, and you would be wrong, because they actually are places that there are still species. We find that 20% of the world's birds actually occur within 54 cities in the world. So we know that if we look at more cities, we will find more birds. It's not all bad. We also want to look at things like, where's housing growth? Where's urbanization occurring? What does that mean for bird populations, amphibian populations? So our goal is really to get a big picture understanding at scales across the continent. So what does this mean? The way I think of conservation ultimately then translates to this. I see conservation that you see on the news as a continuum from tractable, relatively easy, to intractable, very difficult. The stuff that's easy, this is my daughter picking cherries when she's young, low-hanging fruit, right? I love low-hanging fruit because it's easy. You can pick it off. We have enough knowledge to do something about it. And there's stuff that's damn hard, right? You are not going to figure this out in your lifetime necessarily, and even if we do, it's not just going to go away tomorrow, right? Deforestation, coral bleaching, climate change, scary things. That's what you hear on the news. I want to focus on tractable solutions that we can actually accomplish. Have we done any of these? You bet you. In terms of removing plastic, we have done that, right? That was microplastic beads that were in hygienic products are now banned. That was something, we saw a problem, we did something about it. I would argue that in terms of another tractable one, lead in fishing tackle. We know that there's not a need, that we have alternatives. So my goal is to work on things that are on that left-hand scale, that in my lifetime and your lifetime, we can see real-world difference. We have enough knowledge. We can work with people, including landowners, including the public. We can work with policymakers. We can carry out research on the animal and in the landscapes. And ultimately, we can have animals into the future. So we can actually see places that remain natural and still allow human livelihood. Appreciate you listening today, and I'm happy to talk with you at the end of this. Thank you.